and welcome to the first of 5 days of the Magnify Your Marketing Mojo Challenge for coaches. This is my way of helping those of you who are harboring fear, tension, and anxiety about having been forced online by what is happening in the world at the moment. I'm just hoping that you'll walk away from this week with some positive tips and hints that will help you overcome some of your fears and anxieties, and also help you move seamlessly and comfortably into the online space. So for those of you who I don't know, Neil, I can see that you're watching. Gosh, the numbers are climbing. Isn't this wonderful? For those of you who don't know me, my name is Megan Hudson. I've been working in the online environment for at least a year now, running online trainings, and before that, specializing in working with clients, coaching clients, and helping them to get online. Hi, Monica. Thanks for joining me. And I don't know if any of you saw my personal post yesterday about how I, walked into my dressing room over the weekend and kind of looked at all these clothes and thought, we're in lockdown. When am I ever going to wear them next? So I decided that I really am going to show up every day in my absolute best, dress up for you, and hopefully you'll all join me in doing so. And I thought there was never a better time for a coach to wear a crown. So here you go. You've seen it first here. Have you all had a chance to introduce yourself in the group? I saw there were a couple of introductions a little bit earlier, but please use this as an opportunity to tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us who you are, what you're really great at, who your best clients are, your ideal clients, where you get your best results, and tell us what's been holding you back most from putting yourself out there and marketing your services. I'm starting to feel like a little bit of an idiot with this crown on, so I am now going to remove it, but you saw it here first, a coach with a crown. Step number 2, go through the other members of the group, interact with them, see what they've had to say, comment on their posts. Let's make this a lively group. It's one way of getting to know people that you didn't know before, starting to put kind of faces and online voices to the names, make friends with each other on Facebook, and certainly in people's introductions, make sure that you have a look and see whether or not Belinda's just said my corona. Have a look and see from the other members' introductions in the group whether or not there are people in the group that you feel you might be able to collaborate with professionally, because I really do think it's important at all times, and I've seen the greatest results in coaches who are the leading coaches, are coaches who have been generous in sharing their knowledge, and also who have been really, really big on collaboration. I think these are 2 key success factors in building a sustainable coaching practice. So please look out for other people that you can approach, that you can reach out to, that you can get to know over the next 5 days. I've made a lot of relationships in the past couple of years online with people, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit more later. But my question to start off with is, do you believe, if you set your mind to it, that you can learn with a little bit of practice and with the right kind of training, that you can learn to do most things? And I know there's always a little bit of a delay, so I'm going to assume that most of you who are watching right now are going to be answering yes. And I'm really thrilled to hear that, because that means that what you've just told yourself is that, as intimidating as you might find the whole prospect of having to go online and put together some kind of an online strategy to keep your coaching practice going, viable, sustainable, and attracting clients, you are showing up here and you're very much open to learning new skills. And I want to salute and appreciate you for that. Thank you, Monica. Before I go any further, I just wanted to check that you've all signed up to the series of emails that will be going out for this challenge, because I am giving away quite a few additional free resources in the emails. And if you haven't, I will post the link after I've done this live in the introduction to this live. So you can come back to this video and find the link to sign up to the email, the email funnel. So there's always a big gap between what we think we must do, what we have identified that we need to do, what we say that we want to do, and what we actually do. And that's why today, which I don't normally have up when I do videos, because I just think that, you know, they make the background quite busy, but today I've kept my personal vision boards up on the wall, because I think that most of us do the work to create our goals and our visions for our businesses, but we haven't aligned them directly with our needs. And that's why we will go around saying, oh, I've got to get online. I mean, I've just got to up my game in the online marketing space, or I know I've got to start doing this, that, or the other thing. But we don't actually get down to it. It's because we haven't aligned what our vision and goals are directly with our needs. And does one of your needs include marketing your practice? Well, I think you're all going to answer yes. It's a bit of a no-brainer. Belinda says she likes being able to see my vision boards. It looks like I'm walking my talk. Well, yeah, as you can see, I've got quite a lot of vision for this year, so I'm due to have a really, really busy year. But I must say, the one thing that I didn't envision was what was going to happen and how we were going to end up going into lockdown. But getting back to marketing your practice, how aligned is the actual practicalities of getting down and doing it? How aligned is that to your vision and your goals? And have you actually thought about it in the perspective of, if I don't market my practice, if I don't get comfortable in the online space, I'm not going to be able to achieve my goals, and my goals are directly aligned to my needs. So my survival needs, my needs for putting myself out there professionally, acting in my professional capacity. And you know, a few weeks ago I did a video, I think it was about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I did a video in this group where I looked at some research that had been done about the different types of goals, and how they had identified that you've got achievement goals. So achievement goals might be earning a certain amount in your business on a monthly or an annual basis, or, you know, getting to a certain weight or achieving a certain fitness. Those are your end goals, and versus your process goals, which is actually breaking down step by step what individual actions you're going to need to take in order to achieve those end goals. Now, I know that as coaches, that's part of the work that we think that we do, but each one of those actions, the research shows that you're more likely to achieve your overarching end goal if you actually break it down into these smaller process goals, and you pursue you focus on the process goals one at a time. You're more likely to stay motivated, and you're going to be more effective. So I really want to encourage you to look at your overall vision and your overall goals and break them down even further, so that you can identify what the individual steps or process goals are that you need to focus on. And there's this fabulous book by Dr. Carol Dweck. I don't know if I think you're going to see it back to front, but it's called Mindset, and well worth reading. And she talks about the difference between having a fixed mindset and having a growth mindset. Now, actually, there's a little paragraph that I wanted to read about having a fixed mindset, where it says, in the fixed mindset, it's not enough just to succeed. It's not enough just to look smart and talented. You have to be pretty much flawless, and you have to be flawless right away. And from the comments that people have made when they've joined this group, when they've been coming in, when you've been coming in for this training, I think that a lot of you are putting enormous pressure on yourselves to show up in a world that you're not familiar with, that you're not necessarily comfortable with, but show up flawlessly. And so my challenge to you is to say, is this fixed or growth mindset? And Carol Dweck goes, it's Carol Dweck, D-W-E-C-K. Lovely to see you online, Alexa. Really good book to read. The book's called Mindset. You can also Google her, and I was reading an interview that she did with Harvard Business Review, where she said that Einstein and Thomas Edison actually talk so much about how much they learned from their failures rather than from their successes, and how taking the time to focus on what we can learn from what we didn't do right or get right, and how we can do it better the next time, is really part of that journey that we need to embody as coaches. And I'll tell you a personal story. I mean, last Thursday, so every Thursday evening I do a training here online in my group, free training. And last Thursday, without any warning, after a couple of months of having run these trainings successfully and without any difficulty, Facebook shifted the goalposts. So I normally run the trainings off my laptop. Today I'm running it off my phone because I don't trust Facebook anymore. Because when I tried to run it off my laptop last Thursday, there was this new way of running Facebook Lives off your laptop. And I went through my entire live video, got to the end of it, and Facebook hadn't broadcast a single word that I'd said, and I had to start from scratch. The irony was that the video was actually about how we can manage our body language, but also how body language shifts and changes for us as coaches now that we're having to show up and work with our clients in the online world. And let me tell you, when I went on for the second time to re-record, to broadcast my live, I think anybody who's watched that video can see how very tense and stressed I was feeling by that stage, because things hadn't been flawless, they hadn't gone smoothly for me. It just was a very uncomfortable space for me. And again, Carol Dweck in her book Mindset says that we need to praise the process. So we need to focus on how it is that you got to your end result and not necessarily the end result. And she also spends a lot of time saying that we need to become comfortable with confusion, setbacks, and failures. And I think that right now, with what is going on in the world, there's enormous confusion, there's enormous uncertainty, and in order to actually survive mentally, we do need to be able to shift from having a fixed mindset into a growth mindset and say, you know what, we are all novices at this. We are all learning as we go along. Let's help each other out. Let's try and share our experiences as much as possible. And let's come out of this at the end of the day with new skills, having developed new business assets, because every video that you do, if you choose to go on video, is a business asset. But let's build a growth mindset. rather than sitting in a fixed mindset where we have to be flawless and perfect all of the time. It's a very difficult thing to uphold. But in order to be successful in the process, I think that it's helpful to have a plan. And so from tomorrow onwards in the training, we're going to spend a little bit more time focusing on processes that we can put in place, plans that we can create, just to make us feel a little bit more safe and secure in this new and foreign environment. So we're going to be breaking down what we need to learn to market ourselves. What do we need to do to market ourselves successfully? How often do we need to do it? And start taking baby steps towards shifting towards our end goal. I just want to welcome Mardi and Yvonne, who've just joined us. Lovely to see you. I also came across some interesting research by an MIT professor. Hi, Dumi. Wonderful to have you online with us. Welcome. His name is Earl Miller, and his research kind of enforces what we know, that we're not great at multitasking and that our brain can only really focus on one thing at a time. So if we are feeling some kind of fear or intimidation or a negative mindset towards having to show up in this new and foreign online world, one of the things that we can do is have strategies in place to distract ourselves. So I brought something else to share with you. These are mala beads. They are used for meditation. So there are 108 beads on the string, and basically the way that you use them is that you come up with a mantra. So a mantra might be relax, 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 and you just work your way through the string of mala beads, repeating your mantra 108 times. So again, if you're focusing on the mantra, if you're focusing on your mala beads, or if you're focusing on something that you have got to distract you from your fear, from your anxiety, then your brain is going to stop feeling that level of fear or anxiety, and you're going to kind of, cut the process. So put strategies in place, make a plan, and take action. And the best things that we can do is to start creating systems and processes to give us a firm and comfortable foundation from which to operate. So, again, I just want to refer back to when some of you have joined the group and joined this training. Some of the feedback and comments that I got was that you were joining this training to learn how to be more, or to hopefully get some more self-discipline, or to get more organized in terms of how you show up online. A lot of people commented that you just don't have enough time. Well, you've now been given the gift of time. Bit of a truth bomb there. And this is your opportunity to learn to master some new skills that you've perhaps been in the back of your mind knowing that you need to master or wanting to master for quite some time. And so we need to organization and self-discipline become easier with systems and processes, whereas uncertainty allows us to feel fear. So that's why we need to do the planning. We need to create systems, we need to create processes, and these in turn lead to positive self-belief, a sense of self-confidence, and a growth mindset. So I was looking at David Rock's book, Your Brain at Work, and his SCARF model. And he says that, I'm sure most of you are familiar with the book, but he says that most of the time we are either running away from or running towards things that will affect our status, our certainty, our autonomy, our sense of relatedness, or our sense of fairness about what is happening. And taking the most common fears and I'm not talking about phobias now, so I'm not going to go into a whole dissertation about spiders and vertigo and, all of that kind of stuff, but taking the most commonly felt fears, I have grouped them. So one of the fears is, and this is from a chap, I think his name is Adam Smith, and I can't remember off the top of my head the name of the book that he wrote or his research, but one of the big fears, and this came up a lot when you were signing up for this training, was fear of failure, fear of not being skilled enough, fear of being found wanting or inadequate. And all of these fears, when they're playing out in your head, they lead to that horrible imposter syndrome, that little voice in the back of our head that tells us that we're not good enough, that confirms our fears. But I want to remind you that we can only focus on one thing at a time. So we can choose whether or not to focus on that voice, or we can choose to use a strategy that we've put in place, like saying a mantra about relaxed, being confident and being confident. We can choose how we respond to these fears. There's a second group of fears where it's about fear of uncertainty, loss of control, fear of the unknown, fear of change, fear of our loss of freedom. And this shows up a lot in our aversion to new technology, to any kind of technology. I mean, I experienced it when I shared that story with you about what happened last Thursday when I went online to do my Facebook Live, and all of a sudden Facebook had shifted the goalposts for me, seemingly without any warning. I mean, I'd only heard people casually chatting about it earlier that day in an online coaching group that I was in, but I certainly didn't know what I was going to have to deal with when I went online. So this is, and these kinds of fears give us, an aversion to technology, fear of technology. It's why we're intimidated by the online world and all of this tech. We're unsure what to choose, what to use, where to go. There are just, there's so many options out there for every single thing that we want to do. And there's just complete uncertainty when we're first starting out. And of course, we don't want to make mistakes, do we? The third set of fears is about fear of judgment, fear of rejection, fear of getting hurt, or fear of something bad happening. And I want to share with you one of the members of the group when they signed up. And I reached out to this person to appreciate them for how much detail they'd gone into. But I want to quote what this person said in terms of the fears that they were holding, which is a fear of cyberbullying, a fear of the great unknown out there, a fear of something going wrong and of being embarrassed by that, a fear of being judged inaccurately by other people, a fear of people ganging up, a fear of reaching the wrong audience, a fear of receiving inappropriate proposals. And these are all very real fears, and I'm quite sure that a lot of you who are watching now, one or more of these have come up for you as well. We all feel it. This morning when I was preparing for this training, even though I've run a number of online trainings, I had butterflies in my stomach. My stomach was churning. I get nervous before I have to go online. And is it going to be a success? Is anybody going to be there? And everybody feels some level of nerves. It shows that we're alive. So embrace that. Embrace the fact that you really are alive and feeling what is going on for you. But we also have an enormous amount of control in the online world. So do not go online and give up your control. You can block people. You can choose who you connect with. You can choose who you remain connected to. You can choose who you follow. If engagement becomes negative and starts to spiral, you can disengage. You can ignore that person. You can stop following that person. You can block that person. There's no rule that says that you have to keep on engaging when you're feeling uncomfortable. There's no rule. But remember that one of the three aspects of a powerful, sustainable professional brand is being able to emotionally engage with your audience. And if you're feeling unsure, unsettled, or uncertain, I can guarantee that there are people in your existing audience and in your potential audience who are feeling exactly the same way and who will relate to you. And in showing up as a human, in showing up in all of your humanity and sharing how you are feeling and how you're dealing with the uncertainty that we're going through, how you're overcoming your challenges, that's one way of powerfully engaging with your audience, with your potential clients. And I can tell you the one thing that has struck me, because in the past year I've become increasingly more active in the online space, and I would say 95% of my work now is done virtually. And so I've met a number of people in online training groups, in challenges, trainings like this, and built relationships. I've connected with people. I have if you go into a group like this and you watch what people are posting, you're not going to connect with every single person in the group. And you don't have to. You wouldn't be expected to connect with every person in the room if you were networking online. Nobody would be holding that rule over your head. But I've certainly been attracted to individuals and reached out to them, and I've now built the most amazing relationships. I've had the great fortune of meeting some of the people in real life when I've traveled, or when they've traveled to my part of the world. And it's just fantastic that I've had this opportunity to expand my network of professional colleagues and friends, people who are really, really special. But really, not everybody's going to like you, just as it happens in the real world, and you're not going to like everybody that you meet in the online world. So they're not actually that dissimilar. And I really do want to emphasize that many of the rules that apply in the offline or the real world, you'll see that they are going to play out as well as we move more and more online over the next couple of weeks, certainly as more and more countries go into lockdown. But if we give into our fears of how we are going to show up, how people might perceive us, whether some people might not like us, this causes us to procrastinate and make excuses. So we actually end up not showing up until we're forced to, like in the current situation. And so what do when we start making excuses or procrastinating? We start researching, and we get sucked into the whole rabbit hole of the internet so that we can learn what we need to learn in order to show up properly. We become indecisive. We are easily distracted. And remember, our brains don't like clutter. So it's very easy for us to be distracted by busy work and not pay attention to work that at the end of the day is going to move us closer to our goals. So we need to have a plan. We need to have a system. But most of all, we need to have commitments. And in the online world, there is one truth. A commitment that you make. It's a public commitment, and unless you actively go in and delete it, it remains there in the online world. So again, I'll give you a personal example. A few months ago, when I decided that I was going to be showing up on a weekly basis and moving to making more and more online videos and doing Facebook Lives like this, and I must share with you that I resisted doing this for a long time. I was anxious about it. I was nervous about how I would come across, how people would perceive me, how how I would show up in the online world. But I made a commitment in a group that I was going to do a free live training every Thursday afternoon at 5 p.m. And because I've made that commitment in such a public space, I feel that I have to stick to my commitments. So I do want to encourage all of you to start thinking about what commitments you could make about how to show up online. And I'm not saying that everybody has to suddenly start creating videos, but we do need to maintain our visibility now more than ever before. So think about how you're going to do that in a way that will work for you, in a way that you can sustain and maintain, and consider making a commitment in public. And this group is a safe and small space that you can do exactly that. Getting back to, showing up for my lives on a weekly basis, I remember the one week I was really feeling revolting. I had a stuffy nose, I had a sore throat, a headache. No, it wasn't the coronavirus. But I really didn't feel like doing my online live that particular afternoon. But because I'd made this commitment, I felt that if I didn't show up, I would be out of integrity and it wouldn't reflect well on my professional brand. So I want to get back to those of you who feel paralyzed by some kind of a fear that you're holding about showing up in the online space and becoming more visible, whether it's putting out more posts, whether it's writing more articles, whether it's starting to do videos. Rather than focusing on the what, focus on the content. So focus on the message that you want to put across. Focus on what it is that you want to share. And focus on shifting into a space of, instead of saying, oh, God, we're all, in lockdown, that means that I've got to shift online and I've got to start showing up and being more visible online. Instead of having that kind of a mindset, shift your mindset to say, what is it that I have to share that can serve other people? And shift into an attitude of service. It makes a huge difference when you say to yourself, I'm showing up as a humble act of service to share what I know right now to the best of my ability. I may not be the expert, but I'm showing up in humble service. And break down what actions you need to take and give yourself a timeline, a deadline within which to take those actions. Neuroscience shows us that our frontal lobes are wired to be very goal orientated. We evolutionarily have evolved to seek out what we need, the solutions for our needs, to scan the environment for novel solutions that will satisfy our needs or our goals. And when we successfully satisfy these needs, what happens is we get this wonderful release of dopamine in our brain, or the reward hormone. But the fantastic thing that then happens is, because we feel so great with this rush of dopamine, we feel rewarded by our behavior. We then come back and repeat that behavior. And the more we repeat this rewarding behavior, the more rewards we get from, for example, becoming more visible, showing up online, the more we lay down neural pathways that start to tell us, I can do this now. I can manage this. I've found a way to show up that is authentic, that works for me, and that makes me or allows me to feel comfortable. So this is why, going back to what I was saying so much earlier, and why I've got my vision boards cluttering up my wall behind me, which I don't normally show. But this is why it's so important that we align our goals, or what it is that we want to achieve, with our needs. Because then we will, with our goal-orientated frontal lobe, we will look for opportunities to meet our needs. So it's at this point that I'm going to refer to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So starting with our basic physiological needs, which is our need for survival, our need for safety. Then moving on to our psychological needs, for our needs for social acceptance, love, and a feeling of belonging, our need for esteem, both for ourselves and from other people, and finally our fulfillment needs, self-fulfillment needs, or self-actualization. Let me again use going online and Facebook Lives as an example to illustrate this. So you might be saying to yourself right now, or you might not, you might be saying to yourself, in order to be more visible, one of the things that I need to do is to start doing Facebook Live broadcasts. So how would you break that down? How would you get to a point where you are feeling psychological safety, or sufficient psychological safety to be putting yourself out there? Because after all, there is tremendous vulnerability in visibility. So here's some suggestions. You can speak to people who are going live on a regular basis and find out what they did to get started, what tools they're using, how they're doing it. Ask them to show you the kind of, the mechanics around how they do it. Watch videos of people that you like and identify how they're structuring their videos. So what do you notice coming up time and time again in their videos? Get some practice. Instead of WhatsApp calling your friends or family, video call them, so that you can start to develop a sense of comfort about how you are showing up on a screen, how you are showing up in video, and also so that you can start to find flattering angles for yourself or flattering lightings. Just experiment in the safety of your community and the people that you feel safe with and that you know. Develop a plan or an outline for your videos. So here's a basic one. If you want to do online videos, just as if you were writing an article, you start with an introduction, you end with a conclusion, and in between you bring in some key learning points and possibly illustrate them with some stories or examples. It works the same for an online talk, an online video. It works exactly the same as if you were writing something. But the most important rule is do what works for you. Do what you feel most authentic and comfortable doing. And I want to conclude this video with, I don't know whether you would call it a mantra, but Ken Wilber, he developed the integral model that is, or the integral framework that is enormously popular and valuable. And we have one of the great representatives of the integral model in South Africa, Dumi, is on the video today, Dumisani Magadlela, Dr. Dumisani Magadlela. But Wilber has this lovely mantra that says, wake up, clean up, grow up, and show up. And if you can take those 4 steps and make them your rules for every day, while we are having to be more visible online, if you can make it your rule to wake up every day, to clean up, to get dressed, to put makeup on, to put smart clothes on, to behave as though you are still living in your normal professional environment. We need to grow up. We do need to overcome some of our irrational fears about this online space, about technology. Practice makes perfect. And most of all, we need to show up. We need to show up for other people who are out there, who may be alone, who are feeling alienated. And we need to show up for ourselves and for our business. So that's everything that I have to share with you for today. Thank you for staying with me. Tomorrow we're going to be talking about identifying and mobilizing your business assets. And I promise you that I'm going to be able to show you some assets that you didn't know you had. Please don't forget that I am running a competition where I'm going to be giving away prizes for those people in the group who are most active and engaged, and who are engaging most actively with other people in the group. And the biggest prize is going to be 12 weeks of one-on-one coaching with me on how to market your coaching practice without spending a cent. It's my signature coaching program. I'm also going to be giving away a couple of people free access to my online program on how to find and define your niche. So get in there, get active, get visible. Use this group as a safe, small space where you can show up for your friends and colleagues and start to practice and get comfortable with being online. Well, that's it for today, folks. I will see you tomorrow. Please, if you haven't signed up for the email funnel yet, do look for the link. I'll be posting it within the next 5 minutes in the intro to this video on the Facebook group. But thank you so much, and keep safe and well, everybody. And I do hope that I've given you some valuable things to think about today. Enjoy. See you tomorrow.